phrases you can use in academic task 1. Hi there, my name is Ben Worthington. In this video, we're going to look at the academic phrases, which you can use to describe a table, and then in the second part, I'm going to give you 3 useful techniques, and then we'll finish this tutorial with a small warning. And in a few minutes, I'll ask you for a small favor. Now then, let's have a look at these phrases. I'm going to move over here so you can see them there. The first one is an inspection of the data in the first table clearly shows. So hopefully you'll be writing these down, because copy pasting is one thing, but if you really want to learn these phrases, write them down with a pen and paper, and you've got your own list there. Get the PDF, get the text later just to compare your spelling. But anyway, let's go. An inspection of the data in the first table clearly shows. This is very useful. It's quite long, and if you copy paste it, it's grammatically perfect, unless you mess it up at the end. Next one. It is apparent from this table that considerable something, okay? That there is a considerable increase in the final year. In the third column, there is a distinct trend of something, okay? In the third column, there is a distinct trend of increase in production, okay? I'm just trying to give you different kinds of examples that you might find yourself using these phrases. Next one, what stands out in the table is, and then here what you can do is put the largest figure, okay? What stands out in the table is the data for 2002, which is the largest in the entire table. Okay, that's a very useful technique, because by highlighting the lowest and the highest, we're going to be using superlatives. And superlatives will help you pick up points for your grammatical range and accuracy. Next one. Closer inspection of the table shows that in 2002, corn production was at its lowest. Okay, quite a useful sentence, because not only have I told you you can use these with the superlatives, but now you've got 2 sort of like copy-paste sentences. We've got one for the highest superlative, and one for the highest data point and another one for the lowest data point. And they're all cased beautifully, if I do say so myself. Next one. There is significant difference between column A and column B. Most notably, there is a 500% difference for the final year, something like that, okay? But this is another useful phrase, because if you use it appropriately, it's going to force you to make comparisons, which is one of the criteria for IELTS Academic Task 1. Next one. An inspection of the data in the table reveals that, okay? This is just very similar to what I said before, but if you are familiar with IELTS and you're familiar with the scoring criteria, is that we don't want to be repeating ourselves. So although these phrases might sound like they're saying the same, they are grammatically different. So this is why I'm giving them to you, so you can score points for grammatical range and accuracy. Next one, and then I'll ask for that small favor from you. Next one. So what stands out in this table, these ones are quite useful now. What stands out in this table we've got as the beginning, and then we're going to say, is the general pattern of slowly decreasing figures, okay? Or is the general pattern of erratic fluctuations? Ching, 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 ching for points there. Okay, erratic just means crazy, erratic fluctuations just means like very violent changes, very violent sort of like differences, very large differences between the numbers. Anyway, what stands out in this table is the difference between column A and column B, like we said before. What stands out in this table is the wide disparity between figures of 2020 and figures of 2030. Okay, I like that sentence and I'll explain why in a second. Now, I gave you those sort of like two fragments. What stands out in this table is, and now we've got three other opportunities at the end. We can say, is the rapid increase of data, is the growth of, is the growth of production from is the growth of production of corn from country A, yeah? Or is the high rate of expansion or something, okay? Now, this relates to my final tip, the warning, okay, which I'll get to in a second. Now then, the favor that I want to ask you is that if you go and get all these phrases, which I recommend you do, then I'm going to post this link into the comment section, and when you go to when you click on that link, just click like on the comment, or even on the video, but probably better on the comment, because this will help the comment stay at the top, which will help other students find that URL, find that link, okay? It's just a small favor. So now we'll get into the tips. So the first tip is to use fancy sentences or advanced sentences. Now for this, you also need to be quite familiar, quite confident with your use of numbers, with your mathematical abilities. It doesn't take a PhD from Cambridge in mathematics, but it does take a general high ability. So what you need to do is when you're looking at the data, you just keep an eye out for opportunities to use this sentence. So for example, what we're going to do is look for figures where it might be double or triple or quadruple or quintuple. Okay, but generally double, triple, and this way we can use this phrase, which is the figure for 1999 is almost 3 times that of 2010, okay? Or the figure for 2011 is exactly 4 times that of 2010, yeah? So can you see, it's just increasing the amount, the amount of grammatical structures we're using, and it shows the examiner that we've got an eye for detail, and we can spot trends or patterns or just certain interesting points. But most importantly, we're looking for opportunities to use these sentences, because these sentences will help us score points. Okay, one last one. It is clear that the figures between 2010 and 2011 are broadly in the same range. Okay, similar to the ones that before. So that tip number 1 is to use fancy sentences. That's probably better described as keep an eye out for the opportunity to use fancy sentences, but that doesn't sound as good, does it? Okay, tip number 2 is quite quick. Tip number 2 is that when we're describing this chart, we're more than likely going to have to use the table shows or figure or column A shows, and this is okay, but if we can vary it, we could say, or if we can vary it, we're increasing the chances of showing the examiner that we've got a vaster, a larger lexical resource. So we can say, so instead of using shows, we can say the figures in column A illustrate a rising trend. The figures in column B reveal a decreasing trend. Okay, so you can use show, reveals, and illustrate just to vary your language and help boost your lexical resource score. Now then, tip number 3, and then I'll tell you something quite funny. Okay, so tip number 3 is similar to the tip number 1, but this time we're looking for opportunities to group data. And the reason why we want to group data is because then we can compare and contrast the data, and this is another criteria, the ability to compare and contrast. And because when we're comparing and contrasting, we're going to be using some more advanced structures. Okay, so when you're looking at the table, when you're analysing it, look for similarities, because then we can group them together, and most importantly, this will help you avoid listing every single data point. If you're listing every single data point, not only is your writing going to be terribly boring for the examiner, but you're going to fail, because you're not giving a general idea. You're not giving an overview, which is what's requested. So this is why you need to group. Now, the phrases that I will give you now, once again, will help you group, because they'll force you to look for those grouping opportunities. So here's one of the sentences. The figures between 1999 and 2000 are very similar to those of the previous year. Next one. The figures in column A and column B are almost identical. Of course, you're going to adapt these to your specific table, I hope. If not, you might as well just close YouTube and go to the beach, because there's no point. Anyway, so I'll just say the warning. Okay, the warning's related to what I was just saying before, is that use these in context. Practice with them. Don't just go into the exam and just write them all out like I just listed now. Use them in context. Actually look at the graph. I mean, sometimes you might not be able to use the ones I gave you, in which case don't use them. Don't force them into your writing, because then it doesn't sound natural. So experiment with them before the exam. Don't do your experimentation in the exam. Practice, get some feedback, and master these phrases. The best way to get feedback is to get somebody to look at your essay and say, this is great, this is great, this is bad, this is terrible, this is awesome. But just to give you feedback so you can discover your errors, and then the next time you write your IELTS Academic Task 1 table description, the next time you do that, you're going to be wiser and you're going to improve. And if you do get regular feedback from your IELTS tutor or from an essay correction service, go for an IELTS essay correction service. Don't go for any essay correction service. But if you do this, you are slowly going to be, well, not slowly, you'll be quickly improving the quality of your writing. Now, that was the warning. Just get some feedback, use them in context, and this way you will improve. Now, if IELTS is stopping you from going to the UK, from going to Australia, from going to Canada, or even staying in one of those countries, then have a look at the course. I think it'll be very helpful for you. It's quite methodical. We go at your pace. We've got an expert IELTS essay corrector on the team. She's giving some amazing feedback. In fact, as you probably know, if you're on the email list, that she's complaining she's getting too much work, because she's become really popular, and the course has become popular as well. So if you are struggling, don't worry about it. There is help there. Now, my final message before I go is that what type of table can you eat? There's only one. What kind of table can you eat? The answer? Vegetable.